Good morning and welcome to Light Reflections from First Friends. We are glad you have chosen to join us for this virtual worship service and hope you find it beneficial to your spiritual journey. We consider this an abbreviated version of our in-person meeting for worship for those wishing to join us from a distance. If this is your first time joining us, First Friends is a thriving, progressive Quaker meeting in the city of Indianapolis, Indiana. We consider ourselves a loving, inclusive, joyous gathering of people seeking to know truth under the leadership of God's Spirit. All are welcome, no matter race, age, cultural background, sexual orientation and identity, marital status, physical and mental ability, family structure, or economic circumstance. Our hope is that through this worship experience, you will discover our faith community is unlike any other, where silent meditation is as important as the spoken word, where we emphasize the importance of one's personal encounter with the divine, and where we seek to support one another as we discover truth together. Now we invite you to center down and enter this virtual worship space with us.
Was given as a garden, cradle for humanity, tree of life and tree of knowledge, placed for our discovery. Here was home for all thy creatures, born of land and sky and sea, all created in thy again thy garden where all life flows fresh and free. Gently guide thy sons and daughters into full maturity. Teach us how to trust each other, how to use for good our power, how to touch the earth with reverence, then once more we'll eat and flower. Bless the earth and all thy children, one creation, make us whole, interwoven, all connected, planet-wide and inmost soul. Holy Mother, life bestowing, bid our waste and warfare cease. Fill us with grace overflowing. Teach us how to live in peace.
Good morning and welcome to Light Reflections. Our scripture text for today is from Psalms 96, 11-12 from the Voice translation. And so, let the heavens resound in gladness. Let joy be the earth's rhythm as the sea and all its creatures roar. Let the fields grow in triumph, a grand jubilee for all that live there. Let all the trees of the forest dig in and reach high with songs of joy before the eternal. Today we're celebrating our second annual Fun Day Sunday. A couple years ago during our youth affirmation program, our youth brought this idea to our meeting for business and asked us to have a Sunday that allowed us to worship through play. For those at the meeting house this morning, they saw a bouncy house and giant slip and slide and a volleyball net set up and ready for us to enjoy. As well, board games were provided in the fellowship hall. But since you're watching this right now, obviously you are not at the meeting house. So let me encourage you in a different way this morning. I encourage you, if you're able, to take a moment and orient yourself outside. Maybe open this up on your phone or laptop and head out on the porch. Or get in the car and go to the park. That is the nice thing about having this on YouTube. You can press pause and situate yourself. All right, now that we're situated, I was thinking the other day about when our kids were younger. What brought this to mind was driving by the park at the end of our street and seeing about 6 middle school children scattered throughout the park, all on their smartphones. It looked as if something had frozen them in time. I thought of how both Sue and I would say to our kids, all right, time to turn off the devices and go outside to play. Go out and have some fun. Well, sure, they were often playing with toys or building with Legos, not always on devices when we said this. But there was something about getting up and going outside to play that was different and important. And it would not matter if it was a beautiful day like today or in the middle of winter with snow. It was about going outside, and that was the key. If you really think about it, we make the outside part of our play throughout life. When we go on vacations, we go for walks, even when we play sports or exercise, we make sure to get outside. For me, I love spending time in nature, and I love to play in nature, whether it's enjoying the beach or walking a trail or sitting by a waterfall, laying in a field at night to watch the stars. I've always loved playing in nature, but often that's as far as we go. We stop with playing. We utilize the nature, sometimes we abuse the nature, but rarely do we connect with the nature in a spiritual way. Just maybe we will never get to really enjoy the play until we make a connection to the creation around us. My daily walk was changed a year or so ago when I saw a tree that I had never noticed right off the path that I walked each day. I had passed it on numerous occasions with my earbuds in my ears, listening to a book or podcast, and never seeing it. Maybe I'm no different than those middle schoolers in the park. Well, My sole goal was getting my walk in, not connecting to nature. Yet that day, it was like the tree called out to me. Immediately, I stopped and turned off the book I was listening to, and that's when I started to make a connection. I noticed how the tree was overwhelmed at its base by a large invasive vine. It had become so thick that the tree was struggling to fully live. My first instinct was to try and remove the vine, but it was so incredibly thick and intertwined that I knew with my hands that I would not make any progress. So I became a bit frustrated because I did not want to see the tree get suffocated by the vine. Yet, as I stood there in my frustration, it was almost like the tree was asking me to look deeper, or that it was becoming a mirror reflecting back the struggles of my own life. Suddenly I was realizing that I was connecting with this tree. It was showing me more than I had first realized. Well, just at that moment, the sun came out, and as I glanced up from the base of the tree, following the trunk up to the branches of the leaves, that's when I realized that even though that invasive vine was surrounding the tree still found a way to thrive and grow. Above the vines, it was lush and full of color and life. So many applicable lessons the creation was trying to communicate and teach me in that moment. Chris Abrams calls these moments of clarity and connection accidental encounters with nature. I wasn't seeking a profound experience that day when I left my house for my walk, but it happened. That tree took on an entirely new meaning for me, and still today, I never miss taking a moment to look at it when I pass it on my walk. And yes, it has continued to teach me new things over the last year or so. Most of the time, we don't stop. We don't go any further. We don't make the connection. Chris Abrams says that is because mainstream culture exerts tremendous pressure to prioritize the surface rather than the spiritual. And we revert to exercising or socializing using nature as a sort of grand gym or cafe, all the while missing all the deeper ways it could enhance our experience. The day that tree spoke to me, I realized I made a shift from an accidental spiritual relationship with nature to a more intentional one. I found it was not so much me going out to play as it was me going out to connect. Thus the reason I wanted us to be outside for worship today. Now, I know many of you have shared with me connections you've had while in nature. How spending time on your back porch or at this meditational woods or even in a local park can help one transcend the urgency of the moment, slow one down, and help one sense the presence of God more directly. Even one of my mentors and professors used to tell me how he had a profound encounter with a set of birds on his porch bird feeder that he believed was God's way of teaching him how to be a better father. But I also know for myself and for many others, taking the time to connect with God through nature does not come easy. So this morning I thought I would offer you 6 suggestions that have helped me deepen my experience with God through nature. What I've realized is that it's not enough for us adults to simply tell ourselves it's time to go outside and play, and maybe that's because we should be saying to ourselves it's time to go outside and connect. Well, here are some suggestions that have helped me from Kim Abrams. 1, make a commitment. This is often the biggest hurdle to getting outside and making a deeper connection. You and I both have said it, but it's too hot today, or it's raining, or I'm just too busy. Much of this is what Kim names mind clutter. Our mind is working against us, and that might be due to not getting outside and connecting more with nature. Hoping to organically spend time in nature may be our hope, but with our lives these days, it probably will not happen. To develop a spiritual relationship with nature begins by committing to spending some time in nature. That may be once a day or once a week or even more depending on your schedule. After the long pandemic and being cooped up inside, we have what I call nature atrophy. The use of nature and its effectiveness has declined because of its underuse this past year and a half. Number 2, create time alone in nature. When we are with other people, we tend to talk to each other. And even when we're not, we often put on headphones that do the same. I sometimes now find myself going out for a walk without my earbuds in, my phone silenced, and all alone. As Quakers, we must be reminded how silence and solitude go hand in hand. It was Quaker Richard Foster who taught us that solitude amplifies the other disciplines and the environment around us, and it allows us to achieve a greater focus, a greater ability to see just what God is trying to say to us. Even if you're planning to spend some time with others in nature, make an agreement that you will set apart some time for solitude and agree to share how you connected and what you learned. Number 3, find a good place. Don't complicate this. I probably never would have picked to stop at that tree on the path if I didn't allow it to speak to me. You do not need the perfect place or the same place every time. Number 4, sit down. Yes, you may have a spiritual experience in nature while walking or running or climbing, but you may need to stop, sit down to help align your focus. Sitting down breaks the cycle of rhythm you have been in and helps promote you to see and hear and smell and experience new things. Number 5, relax and observe. Spend a moment taking in your surroundings. Try and notice the little details as well as the larger lay of the land. Connect through all your senses. Hear, smell, feel. Allow yourself to enjoy the experience. Then, when you've relaxed a bit, ask yourself a query. What drew me to this specific place? Really take a moment to fully explore that query. It wasn't for a couple of days after I experienced that tree overcome by the vine that I realized why I was drawn to it. And finally, 6, communicate. Being raised in a Western culture, this may be the hardest to grasp. In our Western ways, we are quick to say that trees and rocks and flowers, dirt, do not have a soul or spirit. But I think if we look at it in another way, it may help. It's interesting how often we talk about God communicating with us through nature. God sent that bird, or that sunset, or that rainstorm. So why can't we communicate back or have a conversation with the means God uses? I find words or thoughts appear in my mind, and they aren't the ones that I would come up with on my own. Sometimes a quiet awareness or idea arises, and then you can try to articulate it with words to help you remember it better. For me, this is just what happened when I started to notice that tree with the vines. I started to relate to the tree because I too was feeling overwhelmed. The feeling came into my mind, and I began to look at what all the tree was wanting to communicate to me. Personally, I was probably feeling so overwhelmed that I needed that tree to call out to me. I might not have heard a person, a friend, even my wife. But then it was like the tree, without saying a word, communicated with me and helped me understand, helped me see there was hope, and helped me know I could still thrive and grow. So this morning, I would like you to take these 6 suggestions and spend some time allowing God to use nature to communicate to you and for you to communicate back. Once again, those 6 suggestions are: 1, make a commitment. 2, create time alone. 3, find a good place. 4, sit down. 5, relax and observe. And 6, communicate. For our time of waiting worship, I want you to go out and connect with nature. Allow God to speak to you through nature and see what you are being led to communicate back. Then, once you've made a connection, take some time to play in nature today.
We close this time of worship with a Quaker prayer. God, open our eyes and unstop our ears, that we may see your light and may hear your heartbeat, reflecting and resounding within our chests, in those of all our neighbors, near and far, in all creatures and plants, and in the ground we walk upon. When we finally are able to yield to the leading of your rhythm and flow, may we come to walk cheerfully over the world, answering that of you in all. Amen. Have a great week, friends.